Welcome to the full moon forecast, Pisces 2024. It's a partial lunar eclipse. My colleague, fellow astrologer Justin Elzie is with me tonight to do the full moon forecast. How you doing, Justin?
I'm doing really well, Liz, this evening. I'm so excited about talking about this full moon.
I know it's exciting and it's a partial eclipse and this Pisces energy and changing everything. It's like a lot of change.
Yeah. Lunar eclipses always are. Well, eclipses in general are. As as we know in history, they were always portended the endings and beginnings of cycles with eclipses. And lunar ones were actually pretty important in Egyptian mythology and culture because of the Earth seeing its shadow on the moon, and so they put a lot of symbolism and meaning in that.
Well, thanks for sharing that. So to get a hold of Justin, his website is justincrockettLZ.com and my website is alightpath.com, and we always enjoy hearing from you. So we're looking at the Pisces full moon. It's also an eclipse. It's the harvest moon or the corn moon. It's on September 17th at 7:34 p.m. at Pacific Daylight Time and 10:34 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time. The moon is at 25 degrees Pisces in 40 minutes, and the sun's at 25 degrees Virgo in 40 minutes. So would you like to talk about this one, Justin?
Well, this slide just we pulled this off of I forget what it was, sky.org or whatever, but it's a really great site which shows kind of where the eclipse, this partial lunar eclipse, will be seen, and it'll be seen most everybody in the United States should see this, including us in the Pacific Northwest.
Yeah, it's just going to show like a little piece on the top of the moon in shadow, from what I understand.
Yep.
So Pisces is a mutable water sign. It's ruled by Neptune, the modern ruler, and Jupiter is the traditional ruler. The full moon is a culmination point. It's a preparation to move forward and release and let go. And the sun, Virgo Sun, is about negotiation, perhaps. There's other words for Virgo. And Neptune and Saturn are both in Pisces. So imagination, movable boundaries, and the caution would be delusional and boundaryless. Would you like to add anything, Justin?
Sure. Well, yeah, I like how you use the word culmination, because it is sort of the apex of the bell curve of the cycle. And that Virgo sun being analytical, looking for truth. Yeah, and I like how you use the word negotiation as well, and then of course the opposite of that, Pisces. I liked your description there: imagination, movable boundaries. Delusional or escapism is something that's a part. So it's always between that Virgo Pisces, what's true with what's true and what's not true, and Virgos is always looking for the truth, right? So it's logic and reasoning versus intuition, with these two signs opposites.
Yeah, like the polarity points. Okay, and we have the
Yes.
Nakshatras, so I'll let you take over here.
Yeah, so the Nakshatras are the lunar mansions. These are archetypal myths and meanings to each of the degrees within the zodiac sign that the moon or whatever planet is going through at the time. That's why we call it a mansion. And it's actually broken into 4 padas, or pada is the word for foot in Sanskrit. And what I've done with these new slides is actually put the word for the planet in Sanskrit that we see up there. So because it's full moon, we look at the nakshatra for our lunar mansion of what the sun is in and what the moon is in here. And so the sun is Surya in Sanskrit, and the nakshatra lunar mansion it is in Uttara Falguni in the second pada, or second section. And this particular star here in this lunar mansion, this particular nakshatra is ruled by Ariaman, which is one of the solar deities, and it's called the star of patronage. So there's a really strong relationship connection here, and this we're going to see some, partial some of these themes are bringing in kind of bigger themes sometimes that we're dealing with through the year. Right now we're dealing with the lunar nodes in Libra and Aries, which is all about relationships this year, especially with the Libra South Node. And this particular star, it deals with practical contracts, unions. It's hardworking, and it's about wealth of resources and successful relationships. So the basis above is wealth from family, and basis below is wealth from partner. And of course the symbol is the legs of the bed, which is all about procreation. So there's this thing here about contracts, unions, and really having productive relationships, and that's what the patronage is about. And so it's a very positive thing. And so the ruling planet for this is the sun. The next one for the moon is actually quite interesting. This nakshatra, and of course the moon is called Chandra in Sanskrit, and this particular nakshatra is Purva Bhadrapada, and it's in the fourth pada, and it's called the star of extraordinary forces. This is sort of a darker, mysterious energy with this particular nakshatra that the moon is going through. It is actually in Pisces, and this is sort of that mystical, dark aspect of Pisces that this rules. The keyword themes here are afflictions or emotional connections, storms, and mysterious. Ruling planet is Jupiter, and the ruling deity is Aja Ekapada, which is this fiery dragon. And it's also considered like the one-legged goat. So it's sort of this, and it actually has as a form of Shiva. We know Shiva is the god of destruction and change, and the symbol is two swords. Basis above is creatures to be healed, and basis below is healing therapies. So this is a very mystical, emotional nakshatra that the moon Chandra is going through with this Pisces moon. So just a little energy of how this is playing out. So the sun is very bright, it's a solar deity, and at the other end we got the moon in this very morose, really dark, stormy, mysterious, spiritually focused God. Let's just put it that way. I was going to say daemon or demon, but it's kind of dark.
So, since it's an eclipse, would that intensify the nakshatras?
Oh yeah, absolutely, absolutely. So it doesn't surprise me as we look at the theme of the lunar eclipse, where the Earth sees its shadow, which has always been, I'm be curious what you think about this, but I've always heard it is described as really working through shadow issues or darker, our inner demons, right? Really, with the Earth seeing its dark aspect of its shadow, right?
An opportunity to release that which no longer serves us, I think.
Right. Yeah. And leaders who were born on lunar eclipses in history were not considered very good, would turn out to be very good leaders because of that, so.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Thank you. So I have a quote. Whenever I sing Total Eclipse of the Heart, the way people sing along with me still excites me. It's one of the songs that audiences know all the lyrics to, and they sing along with me, and it makes me so happy. Please also know my songs Holding Out for a Hero and Lost in France, and this gives me so much joy on stage, and that's by Bonnie Tyler. Sorry. So we're going to look at the astrology chart, and we're going to look at the ascendant, which is to the left circled in an orange color, the midheaven, which is at the top of the chart circled in a green color. And the sun and moon are opposite each other. Do you want to make a comment about this?
No. Well, let's
Oops.
let's go back. Yeah, of course we know that the angles of course are going to be based on location, of course, but I would say it's interesting. And in the Seattle area we have here that where we have the that ascendant midheaven is actually a cardinal cardinal, so it's definitely representing something beginning there.
Exactly. Okay, so we're going to look at the Sabian symbols next. They were discovered in 1925 by spiritualist medium Elzie Wheeler. She channeled them with the assistance of Mark Edmund Jones. They are a symbolic phrase that represent an image for each degree of the zodiac. And would you like to start us off, Justin?
Sure. So, well, why don't you start?
Okay, so the Sabian symbol for the ascendant, and we're going to cover 3 degrees for the ascendant. So basically, we call it what's leading up, what's the now, and what's is next. So Aries 6 is a square with one of its sides brightly illumined. The emotional desire for concrete and stabilized existence as a person, and the key phrase, a one-sided urge for inner stability.
And then where we're currently at is Aries 7 degrees. A man succeeds in expressing himself simultaneously in two realms. The keynote here is the first realization of the dual nature of humankind and of the possibilities it implies. A situation often characterized by the symbol can be successfully faced if its spiritual material implications are understood and actualized. So its key phrase is living 2 separate lives.
And then where it's moving to is Aries 8, a large woman's hat with streamers blown by an east wind. The keynote is protection and spiritual guidance in the development of consciousness. The key phrase is protective forms and sensitivity to spiritual energies. Do you want to recap any of these?
Yeah, so just in my experience with these, if I was to look at these 3 as a running storyline, this really speaks to a person that's actually it's very active, but it's trying to find some level of stability in life. And I tend to find that people who tend to be very swayed by others or I would just say swayed by others is really represents that Aries 8. I find that a lot of times, so it seems like this is a very sensitive ascendant as way we're moving into the world here a little bit.
That's great. Okay, we're going to go on to the midheaven at 3 degrees Capricorn. Do you want to start with this one?
Sure. Capricorn, what we're coming in is 3 rose windows in a Gothic church, one damaged by war. And the keynote here is the necessary realization of any individual making a violent use of collective power that it will lead to the inevitable destruction of some of the values ensuring group integration is what we call waste.
And then where we're at now, Capricorn 3, a human soul in its eagerness for new experiences seeks embodiment. In the keynote, a powerful yearning for whatever will increase the scope and depth of one's contacts with other living beings. And the key phrase, desire to prove oneself.
And then what we're moving towards here, Capricorn 4, is a group of people outfitting a large canoe at the start of a journey by water. And the keynote here is the ability to use natural resources and basic skills in order to achieve a group purpose. It's what we call group activity. So,
and what's your recap?
Yeah, I was going to say, so my experience with these, gosh, this is so Capricornian, these phrases here. And earlier I meant to say that it was the ascendant in midheaven, which are cardinal signs. Again, how we're moving forward into the world, and of course the midheaven, what we're ultimately trying to get something going here. I think this just shows that we need to watch how we use our power, is that first one, as we're moving forward with our goals right now. And that we don't have to prove ourselves to everybody. That second one with whatever we're trying to accomplish, but that, we will have the skill that we need to accomplish any large or any small thing that we're trying to set out on our journey to accomplish right now.
Well, and I would say that, there might be other people to help us accomplish what we want to accomplish too, or, or might have a similar goal in mind. And if we help each other out, that we can help each other reach our goals faster.
I agree. That's a great view.
And then we have the Sabian symbol for 25-degree Virgo Sun. And Virgo 24 is leading up to Mary and her little lamb. The need to keep a vibrant and pure simplicity at the core of one's being as one meets the many tests of existence. And the key word is innocence.
And then Virgo 25 degrees, a flag at half staff, half mast in front of a public building. The keynote here is the social acknowledgement of a job well done and a destiny fulfilled. And again, we have here public recognition.
And then where the sun's moving to is Virgo 26. A boy with censer serves the priest near the altar. The keynote is the first stage of actual participation in the great ritual of planetary evolution. And the key phrase is practice in the presence of God. So would you like to recap this?
Yeah, so I think it's interesting. Again, here we have the Earth sign. Of course, it's all about service. Virgo, right? That's that last one, being of service and helping others right now is what the sun is. But then we have that sort of almost that Capricorn theme coming in, desire to prove oneself. But now we also have, kind of needing to be recognized for that job well done that we're doing right now. But looking at life from an innocence point of view.
That's great. I like that. And then the Sabian symbol for the moon is 25 degrees Pisces. And do you want to start this one?
Sure. On a small island surrounded by the vast expanse of the sea, people are seen living in close interaction. And the keynote here is the need to consciously accept one's own personal limitations in order to concentrate one's energies and to live a more centered and fulfilled life. It's what we call concentration. So our centralization, it's kind of how you centralize or concentrate your energy.
And then Pisces 25, where we're at now, a religious organization succeeds in overcoming the corrupting influence of perverted practices and materialized ideals. The power of the soul to intervene in the personal life and to induce necessary catharsis. The key phrase is creative acts require moments of crisis and purification.
And then Pisces 26, where we're moving towards, the key phrase here is watching the very thin moon crescent appearing at sunset. Different people realize that the time has come to go ahead with their different projects. Keynote here is a keen appreciation of the value of individualized responses to any challenge of life. And of course, the key phrase here is the fallacy of totalitarianism.
Wow. That's interesting. The centralization and the creative acts and the totalitarianism.
Yeah.
That speaks a lot, just those three words, I think.
Yeah. Well, let's hope in our current situation in the world, people take that to heart, the fallacy of totalitarianism.
Yes. Okay. And this new moon, we have the out of bounds planets are the moon will be from September 10th through the 14th. So it's not actually out of bounds when we have this full moon, and the 23rd to the 27th. And then Ceres has been out of bounds since April and won't go back in bounds till January of next year. And then there's an aspect key for those that are interested, and it can be downloaded on off my website. And we have an interesting special thing on the same day as the full moon. It's called the Lunar Occultation of Saturn. It's on September 17th, and the moon passes in front of Saturn at 4:09 a.m. Saturn and moon are conjunct each other during the occultation, visible from the western United States, Canada, Australia, northwestern Mexico. And to find out more about this, Justin found a website that you can go on, lunaroccultations.com, that's very interesting.
Yeah, and that's associated with one of the observatories, and they've got these great tables out there, which you can go out there and see exactly what time the occultation is, and then when any other occultations happen with any of the other planets. So they give upcoming dates. It's one of the planetary observatories. I don't think it's the Lowell one out of Arizona. It's one of the royal ones, I think.
Yeah, so maybe I can wake up at 4 o'clock in the morning and see it. Hopefully we have a clear sky. We'll see, because
Yeah.
last night was pretty cloudy after a while. So
Yeah.
So here's the occultation that Justin found a picture of where you can see it from. Do you want to make any more comment about this?
But yeah, it's going to be pretty much seen really from most of the western United States going west over through Hawaii and down into Australia.
So the occultation or the conjunction is exact at 3:10 a.m. Pacific Daylight Time, and I just wanted to show an astrology chart of that. Do you want to add anything about the lunar occultation?
Well, yeah. So this, when we have an occultation, people might notice that the observatory says at 4:09 a.m. and then the exact is at 3:10. So there's a window range, because as it starts to move over, the moon touches Saturn, and then it goes over it. So this is like a window, a period of when this and during that time we have what we call the conjunction. So there's a window of time there. It doesn't happen just at 1 minute. There is an exact time, but there's a window. So,
well, and an occultation is similar to an eclipse. So we're going to have two eclipses on the same day, so to speak, even though occultation is not an eclipse.
right.
So blocking Saturn, do you think like the boundaries and rules are going to change?
Well, I think it's interesting. Now that's a pretty deep question. I think that back to our last conversation, where the moon is kind of showing us what is we have to work on. I think it's doing us a favor by blocking Saturn out with the limitations, right? So it's almost like there's no limitations at that particular point in time during the lunar eclipse and the occultation because Saturn represents limitations. One of the meanings that it's kind of negating it, I would say. That's the way it feels like to me. It's taking Saturn out of the picture, right?
Yes, I like that, because it's like we're blocking Saturn and then we're blocking the moon.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's almost like taking Saturn out of the picture allows for I was listening to a podcast earlier that Bruce Lee had said something, that there's no such thing as limitations in life. There's only possibilities.
Yes. And we have a viewer, Ethan, that would like to say hello, Justin.
Oh, hey. So, yeah, so I think it's, and by the way, for anybody wondering, this is not rare for lunar occultations, because at any time during a month, there's going to be some occultation depending on where you're at on the planet. But I think it is kind of important, this particular one, because we can see it, and it's during a lunar eclipse. So I think it takes on a little bit more meaning.
Yes. Okay, are we ready to get into the Pisces full moon partial lunar eclipse?
Sure.
So we have, again, the chart for that, and the It's cast for Seattle, the chart. And we have a cardinal grand cross with the nodes involved and the ascendant. So the north node is on the ascendant and the south node is on the descendant. And then we have Mars opposite Ceres and Pholus. Do you want to talk about this cardinal cross?
Well, the planets that just really that really jump out to me about this is always Mars. One of the malefics there, and what Mars is a disruptor here. I think it being in Cancer, opposing Ceres and Pholus and Capricorn is asking us to pay attention to family, pay attention to our emotions, and the structure of our emotions with our relationships. What do you see?
Well, I just want to mention that Ceres and Pholus has been in a T-square with the nodes for about a month and a half, and we'll soon be kind of separating from that in a few weeks here. And so that's been going on. But then Mars comes in and lines up and makes a cardinal cross. And I always think of grand crosses as a time, it's like time to make some adjustments. And with the nodes being in the relationship one, so I think you're spot on about family and relationships and what sustains us and what do we need to change to move forward in life.
Right. And we may actually, I always look at, I'm not sure how you say, I think you say it somewhat the same way as oppositions is really, you don't move forward so quickly with oppositions because there's an opposite, how we say in physics, an opposite force pulling the other direction here. So, Mars is always trying to move forward with something, but here we have an opposing force with Ceres and Pholus in Capricorn, which rules structure, and so we have emotions and structure, and Ceres, of course, having some relationship to how we're nurtured by others, and in the collective. So I definitely see could be some where we're looking at. We could have some tension in our emotions and structure of our emotions around certain things right now.
Well, and it could be four different opinions or being pulled in four different directions. It's like, I don't know which one to do. I want to do all of them, but I can't do all of them at once. So you have to pick one and work on one and then work on the other ones.
I agree. And, a part of that too is that Mars in Cancer, if a person has Mars in Cancer, they'll tend to take action based on emotional rationalization or emotional feeling, intuition. So people are going to be in the collective right now, even though they may not have Mars in Cancer, but this is still affecting us more at a collective group level. I would say that people are going to be much more, we're already seeing that now, political year and everything, but people are going to be really emotionally, just reactive emotionally before logic and reasoning.
Yes, I agree with that. And, to me, the Cardinal Cross is asking for some change, and what that change is might not be totally revealed, but you might have an idea of how to start moving. But it's almost like if you move in a direction, it'll all fall into place anyway.
Right.
So we have a mutable T-square. Do you want to talk about this one?
Yeah. So, we've got, I think the important thing that jumps out to me here is the Jupiter and Gemini, of course. Jupiter being the biggest planet in the solar system and the sign of communications right now. So it's a great period in time for artists and writers and musicians, writing, communications. I think this is the fact that it is squaring this lunar eclipse is kind of important in that it's that's one of the focuses I think that may come out with the shadow is the communications and how that's going right now in a collective.
Well, and with Neptune being conjunct the moon, it's like, are your emotions, do you have a reason to be emotional, or is it a delusion or a fear of something coming to pass? And sometimes until you know what it is, it's like you don't want to worry about something that's not even going to come to pass or could not come to pass.
Right. And this also for artists and creative people, because Gemini rules communications. With Jupiter, they're squaring the Piscean archetype of the artist, also in the imaginary, visionary personality. And it's squaring the Sun in Virgo, which is being critical. This could be the time when we actually look at our creative projects and we say, I need to edit this. I need to retake a look at how this is coming across. So we may see this is a time when people make changes to film scripts and editing books. And back to what I was saying before with that the Nakshatras, I think this can play out here with the where we were looking at the sun being the related to contracts and unions, and the moon related to really that shadow, and I think that's highlighted here, and that we again with relationships and communications in the shadow.
Well, and if you have any block with your creativity, it's like figure out a way to help move that, whether it's to take time to yourself, go for a walk, go for a few days away somewhere, anything like that to help assist to get you back in that creative flow.
Right, absolutely.
Okay, we're going to move to the next one. So also in a T-square is Jupiter with Saturn and Nessus and Mercury. So, kind of, again, talking about the communication and the creative flow and the creative energy. It's like, if you're blocked, because Saturn could be blocking that creative flow, it's like, what are you going to do to get it moving? Whether it's talking about it or doing some journaling, any number of things. What would you like to say?
Oh, I totally agree. And I would just add, people are going to, because this is kind of, again, this is the collective and what's happening. And people are going to be a little bit more serious now, because Mercury has, not only are we in Virgo season, but the Mercury's there. Mercury represents your communication, your thinking, and Mercury rules Virgo along with Gemini. So this is a more intellectual, serious personality type that we're moving into. So people are going to be a lot more analytical in some ways here, or critical of things, or negative about things, but still emotionally driven with Mars and Cancer. So there's a little bit of a conflict there with what's logical, rational, practical versus how I feel emotionally about things. And so it's a good time for evaluation. We always look at squares as evaluating, right?
Well, and I would take note of all the ideas and dreams or visions that you have, because they may be coming so fast it's hard to capture them on a certain level. So, whether you have a notebook or write about it, etc., I think that's important too.
Yeah.
Okay, do you want to talk about the Mars aspects?
Let's see, what were we talking about before the show? Well, no, I think I wouldn't say really much more than what we said before. I mean, it is squaring again Juno. I think that's kind of important there. Again, there are the emotions and relationships, because Juno was the wife of Jupiter, represents marriage and relationship. And of course, it's asking us to pay attention to that, and of our emotions and communications and relationships. And of course, Vesta, I think it's an easy flow there with the sextile, can be an easy flow of emotions within the collective.
Well, and I would just add reviewing our relationships. Are they working? Can they be improved? Have we outgrown them completely?
Yeah.
And to me, and you said this too, that the Earth Grand Trine Kite is like the biggest aspect for this moon, this full moon eclipse. So do you want to talk about it? Go ahead.
Yeah, well, and I think it's always important to point out to people who are just learning astrology that that squares and oppositions bring tension and evaluation, and ask for, as squares ask for action, but usually you're not able to take a lot of action with oppositions because there's an opposing force, so it's an evaluation thing. But that trines and sextiles it's just a flow of energy. It can go either positive or negative, however you want to see it. So I would be careful of listening to people say that trines are always positive, because trines can be actually whatever energy or intention you're putting out there. That's how the trine could go, right? But this is a pretty powerful trine, because I think is because that Pluto is triangulating Uranus, and of course, the sun is on one end of that, and then of course we got the kite with the moon in Pisces. I'm just curious what you think about this.
Well, it's interesting that we have the three outer planets, and then we have a personal planet or inner planet, the sun, in triangulation with this. And it's been, the planets have been kind of changing, and then Mercury will be in the same aspect with these outer planets too. So it just feels like a big shift and change to me.
Yeah, and if I agree, and I think that if we were, because it is involving the moon, the lunar eclipse, it's almost like this is almost like an earthquake ground shift within the collective here, because the moon is right there with Neptune, which represents the collective, and we know that when Pluto is trining Uranus, it's an easy flow of change. So it's almost like an earthquake of shift of some type of, because it's Earth. So it could be something to do with money or resources around this period of time, or markets. There's something that's going to shift.
Yeah, I heard today that the stock market's never been higher. So, so I don't know if that helps or adds to it, but we'll see.
Right.
Okay, and then Jupiter aspects. And we've kind of talked about some of these before, but it's kind of fun to look at them all together. So Jupiter and T-square to Mercury and Neptune, and then trine to Venus and Juno. So would you like to speak any more about this?
No, I think we got that covered.
Okay. And so we have a lunar phase family or gestational cycle, and there's 4 lunar phases: new, first quarter, full, and last quarter. And it completes over, each one will stay in each phase for approximately 9 months. So it's about a 3-year phase. Dietrich Pessin came up with this form of how to do the lunar phase family, and it's always kind of fun. So right now we're at the full moon eclipse phase for September 17th of 2024 at 25 Pisces. But it began back in March 21st of 2023 at 4 degrees Aries. Now, sometimes the lunar phase families flip between signs, so it's interesting that it went from a fire sign to a water sign. And the first quarter was on December 19th of 2023 at 27 Pisces. Now we're back at 25, and then the third quarter will be June of next year in 2025 at 27 Pisces. So if you journal or keep notes, sometimes you can look back like, okay, around March of 2023, did you begin or start a project or something, and how is it developed? Is it time to move forward with it? Is it time to release it? Has it accomplished something, and now you're taking it to a newer level? So it's kind of fun to be able to look back at those. Would you like to comment?
No, I was saying that I'm glad you took a little bit extra time with this, so that people can kind of think about what were we doing back at those dates. And I do like that Aries is that sign of, new starts, new beginnings, right? That's right there on almost on the equinox there, when this started, and now we're seeing it very close to the fall equinox here, on this full moon, and so I think it's important to take a look at these dates for people to take a look at this and think what they were doing around that time, and then what do they have planned for June 18th.
Right. It's like keep going forward with it, or it's time to release it, or what?
Right.
Okay, and then we have a yearly lunar phase, and the Pisces new moon was on March 10th of this year at 20 degrees Pisces. So it's like you could have started something this year in March, and then now we're at the full phase, and it's like, how have things changed? And what you put forward, is it growing, or do you need more information, or do you need to put it on the back burner for maybe a couple of years down the road, or is it time just to release it and find something else?
Right.
Do you have any more comments?
Nope.
So what would you like to, any final comments about the eclipse and the moon?
No, I think this is just I wouldn't say anything more than what we already said about it's a good time to evaluate any types of emotions or structure within our relationships, and that's all I would say.
Well, thank you. And Justin and I both do consultations. We both have newsletters, and we both have YouTube channels. So we'd appreciate you subscribing and joining us. We always look forward to having new people. And I want to thank all those that have joined us live today and those that are watching down the road. And I do a monthly podcast with Justin. We have 3, the full moon forecast, the monthly astrology forecast, and we're working on a Chiron asteroid series right now, and part 3 will be coming up probably in about a month or so. And then I have a show called the Astrology Star Sisters Talk Over Tea, and there's a dwarf planet series. The autumn equinox is coming up. Libra decans with astrology and tarot, and You're a Cup Full of Stars, which is about the fixed stars. And then Justin and I are on Talk Cosmos on September 29th at 1 p.m. Pacific Daylight Time. And we're talking about the Libra solar eclipse. So we look forward to having you. And Justin, you can talk about what you're doing.
Yeah, and then I do a podcast with Michael Bartlett where we do a show called The Relationship Guys. We can go over, talk about relationships. And I've got some other stuff going on YouTube and Instagram that people can check out. So,
okay, and we have a question from the audience. Do you have any thoughts on experiencing an eclipse season during a very tight nodal opposition?
What do you think? I'll let you go with that one first if you'd like.
Well, the nodes are getting ready to change signs in January, so we are getting close to that, but we still have winter solstice to reach. So it just feels like, since we have the occultation of Saturn, we have the eclipse on the same day, the fall equinox is, in a few days, and the nodes, it's like everything is changing so much. Lots changing.
Right. Well, the nodes really represent, the south node's about death and rebirth, and where you're coming into it with, and the north node is where we're working towards, which is that Aries, sense of self. And because Libra's about relationships, so it's always about, with people have these nodes in their chart, it's about, do I do it myself or do I do it with somebody else? There's always a change of relationships at this particular time. And if a person does have this in their chart, and with the lunar eclipse there, it's definitely going to bring in, show them issues around relationships. That's the relationship with these nodes. It's about issues with relationships that we have to deal with.
Okay, and the next question is, a best time to launch a website in the next few days. Do you want to say what you think, and then I'll say what I think?
Yeah. just trying to think where the everything's in the sky right now. What is see, the moon today's in what?
Pisces.
Today's in Pisces. That's right, because tomorrow's in the Pisces. Well, I would say as soon as the moon moves into Aries would be a good time to start the launch, though. Even if it's still coming out of a full moon here, it's still a good time to start something, especially with an Aries moon.
Well, and I would say eclipses, you don't know what the outcome's going to be because it could be very unpredictable. So, depending on what kind of business, lots of times it wouldn't be the best. Or this is a website, right. So, but maybe it could be way better than you thought. Okay.
Yeah, I think if I would just say one thing about that question and about prediction, it's important to always know what the moon is in, what sign the moon is in, and moon, when the moon is in Aries, it's all about new beginnings. Like that's Aries rules entrepreneurship. So as soon as that moon hits the north node, and wherever you might want to pay attention where that is, that Aries rules for you in your chart. But generally, starting new things on an Aries moon is preferable, and it's right after this Pisces moon.
Well, and if it was a spiritual business, maybe Pisces moon would be okay. But eclipses are unpredictable, so
yeah,
like they say, don't make wine on an eclipse. Okay, and the eclipse is happening on the 17th for the Pacific Northwest and the whole United States. And somebody had asked if it was on the 17th or 18th, so it could be on the 18th, depending on where you live.
Yeah, the East Coast is 10:34 p.m., so it's still on the 17th. Mm-hmm. But outside the United States, yeah, it would be different elsewhere. Yeah.
You'd have to look it up. They have time and date. I think you can look it up on there. So,
yeah. Can I say one more thing about the one question about a person's time to start something new? So, one of the things we always want to look at is, especially when starting something new, it's about taking action. And so you want to look at what sign the moon is in. Is it in any positive aspects? You want to make sure it's not in any like squares, or detrimental squares, and in some positive aspects, and in a good sign. So Aries is a good sign, and then of course that Mars is also not in any like squares or negative aspects. If it's going direct, it's probably generally not a good time to start something new if Mars is going retrograde, because Mars is always about taking action and effort and forward movement. But Mars is not retrograde yet, and so it will be here retrograde after the election. So it is a good time now just to get those things going, because we will be in a Mars retrograde after the election all the way into the new year. So just a couple of things to think about when you're wanting to take action with, because you do electional astrology as well. And so it's some of the things you want to think about is the sign the moon is in, that it's doesn't have any negative aspects, and Mars as well.
Well, and compare it to your own chart. So if you want more help with that, you can contact Justin or I, and we'd be happy to do a consultation on when to launch your website. So because it's a kind of a complicated answer. There's so many things, and there's never a perfect one. There's never a perfect one, but you can find some that are better than others. So
yeah, and you want to look at the person's individual nativity chart. You're correct, because it can be very specific to the person, and as we look at an electoral astrology, there's never a perfect date. There'll always be something that's a challenge.
Right. Well, thank you again, all of our audience. And if you want to get a hold of Justin, his website's justincrocketelzie.com, and his email is justin.elzie@gmail.com. And if you want to get a hold of me, my website's alightpath.com, and my email is liz@alightpath. And thanks again. And thank you, Justin, for being here. I really appreciate it. And we'll be back. We'll be back again before you know it. Bye for now.